Hello and welcome, history fans, to History Play-by-Play. Today, the Articles of Confederation are unfixable, which leads us to the Constitution.
In all alone. Dangle, shot. He scores!
The Articles of Confederation were clearly a failure. In this loose league of friendship was not enough to bring the states together to create any kind of national fixes to state problems. And Shays' Rebellion made that abundantly clear. And so a convention was called in Philadelphia in order to fix the Articles of Confederation, because if one state falls, the rest will fall with them. Had Massachusetts fallen to Shays' army, then what happens in other state capitals? We need national solutions to state problems. So they called together a convention to amend the Articles, to fix them, and the 55 delegates who attended expected this was going to be some pretty significant fixes, but they felt that they were there to fix the Articles. Most probably wouldn't have shown up if it wasn't for that purpose. But it does become rather obvious that the Articles are unfixable. And so they begin starting on a whole new government, a whole new way to do this, which is the U.S. Constitution. Now, I am going to grossly oversimplify, but at a high school level, and even college level, 101 courses especially, that there's three people in the Constitutional Convention who really matter. The super significant people. George Washington was elected as the president of the convention because George Washington was universally loved. Everyone knew him. And if George Washington was doing it and George Washington was behind it, then it had to be legitimate. George Washington did not attach his name to things that were fly-by-night or things that you might not go with. And so he adds a legitimacy that could not be contained any other way. James Madison was the father of the Constitution, the guy who did most of the writing. When you think of politicians, there are a lot of people are about egos and feeding that and what can they do to glorify themselves. James Madison was not that guy. James Madison was the let's get it done and get it out of the way and move on kind of guy. He's that person you want in every group project. Because his big thing was like, look, I don't care who gets credit for what, let's just get it done. And he was the one who took on most of that and simply got it done. Ben Franklin, an elderly man at this point, was there to keep everyone on track. There was a fantastic story when all of this started that no one could figure out where do we start? Where do we actually begin this idea? And perhaps the story is apocryphal, but it is quite enjoyable. That no one could agree on where to start. And so Ben Franklin motions that they hire a preacher to open the meetings with a prayer. Now, I've had some American history propaganda books, some things from past decades, where they stop the story there and they're like, look, America and religion. The story continues that motion failed for lack of a second. It didn't even get to voting. No one else thought that was a good idea. And that absence of wanting that, because the Founding Fathers were all very scared of what religion had done to Europe with dukes and duchies and so on, that they wanted to avoid that entirely. And so they had somewhere to start on. And I like to think that that's why the First Amendment includes Congress shall make no law establishing a religion. So his sage words kept things going and kept them on track. It was just a very Ben Franklin kind of thing. There's also a story where, there's a sun on, I believe it's George Washington's chair, and it's only half of a sun. It's cut in half. And Franklin says that, hey, I had been staring at that, wondering if it is a setting sun or a rising sun. And now that we've done all this, I know that it is a rising sun. This is the beginning of the new country. Good stories, apocryphal maybe, but enjoyable nonetheless. Two plans emerge as things get rolling in this Constitutional Convention. The Virginia plan set forth by James Madison was that states would get representation based on how much population they had. This is called proportional representation, and that's the key term, really, proportional representation, Virginia plan. That Virginia felt it was absurd that they should only get the same number of votes as Rhode Island when Virginia had literally 10 times the population of Rhode Island. Why does Rhode Island have the same say as Virginia? There's logic to that. Also in the Virginia plan, they suggested 2 houses, which is very much like the British government. A lower house would be elected by the people. The upper house would be picked by the lower house, and that would be that way until the 17th Amendment. Yes, the 17th Amendment, the direct election of senators, where basically the Senate, the upper house, didn't want to have to worry about elections, so they could do unpopular things like levying taxes and not have to worry about their jobs. You might also wonder that maybe the Founding Fathers didn't want to have to worry about running for re-election and possibly losing an election. They like to have nice, safe jobs in the Senate, but that's speculation. The other plan, put forth by William Patterson, is the New Jersey plan, usually referred to as the small state plan. States would get the same number of representatives, regardless of their population, because they are equal states. It's referred to as equal representation, and is directly like the Articles of Confederation. It also includes 1 house, also like the Articles of Confederation. So you have the big state plan and the small state plan, and the two were not finding the middle ground until William Sherman of Connecticut came up with a compromise, and I dare say it's a great compromise. In fact, it would be named the Great Compromise. So there'll be 2 houses of Congress, just like in the plan, the Virginia plan. But there is a twist to this, where 1 house would be representation, where you would proportional representation, proportional representation, whereas a bigger state with more population would get more votes, which follows the Virginia plan, and then the other house would be equal representation, where every state gets the same amount of votes, following the New Jersey plan. And in order to get a law through, you have to pass through both of those houses. So you get all the benefits of the big states, you get all the benefits to the small states, all together in one, and that is the House of Representatives with its proportional representation, and the Senate with its equal representation, and that's how the government has worked ever since. That's where it all comes from. The Senate with equal representation would be the upper house, partially because the Virginia plan gets its 2 houses, and that's how our government functions. It's a fantastic way to make that happen. The Constitution is perhaps the biggest and best, most important, most fun part, has a thesis statement that sums up the entire thing, the entire point, and you should be able to work from this regardless. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and ensure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And that's without reading it. It's on screens beside me, but not directly. In high school, we had a quiz with, I think it was 48 blanks, and you had to get every single one of them right. And Mrs. Hegedus made us learn it, and if you missed a word and the rest were off by a space, too bad. It worked. I've never been that cruel. But everyone should go and watch the Schoolhouse Rock with the preamble. They omit of the United States from it, but otherwise it is spectacular. It does its job perfectly. Real quickly, I want to go through the components here because I think it's important. We, the people of the United States. For the first time, we, the people. It's going to be the individuals, not nobles, not kings, not monarchs, nothing. We, the people, are the ones putting forth this government for the people. In order to form a more perfect union, the main problem of the Articles of Confederation was that it was fracturing, and the states had too much power, and the states were too big on going off on their own ways. So this is about unifying the country. Establish justice. The courts and figuring out these issues and making sure that states, if they had issues with one another, could rectify those issues were the key points of having a legal document to do all this. Ensure domestic tranquility. Domestic, at home, meaning within the United States. Tranquility is peace. To make sure that the states are not going to argue and squabble and fight each other, except for one big exception, to keep harmonious home use so that we can take on the world. Provide for the common defense. In this case, that we're talking about together. So not only are we having peace at home, but we are going to make sure that we stick together to protect ourselves from issues abroad. Promote the general welfare. The welfare in this case simply meaning well-being or health of the citizens. That we are going to make sure that we do things for the benefit of the people. secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Posterity is a word meaning future generations, our descendants. This is not going to be a government for 10 years, 20 years, even one lifetime. This is meant to be an ongoing thing, and it is. It is the longest running document of government that is actually governing to this day, and there's good reasons for that. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America, saying that yes, this is the purpose of it, that the entire methods, everything involved is in this thesis statement of the preamble. And you can try and trace everything that happens in U.S. history back to this. What is the government's job? It's this. And as long as the government does this, then it is doing its job. It is establishing the social contract right there with everyone. This is what our government is supposed to do, and the people are to uphold and obey that government so long as it is doing it. And so with that, we'll go deeper into the Constitution and the other things involved as we continue with this. But for now, that's all I got for you. That's the end of the episode. What you just saw is this teacher's interpretation of events. If you use this for a class, let me know how that went in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you can figure out how today's jersey matches the content, let me know in the comments. That's extra credit. I'm John Baranowski, and thanks for watching.